What's good, Panthers Nation? It's that time of year again, mock draft season. This is my first one, mock draft 1.0, pre-Senior Bowl. Obviously, the draft order has been locked in for the most part. Obviously, the Super Bowl got to play, but the Panthers, they have locked theirs in. Of course, when we do these mock drafts, we have to do assumptions. You know what they say about assuming, but we have to make assumptions on these types, just so you know where my head is at when I made these picks. Now, the first assumption is, of course, I'm not assuming anything in terms of what happened in free agency, what we're going to do. I'm going into this draft looking to draft the best player available. What am I seeing as the needs? Obviously, we need help on defense. Obviously, we need help in the trenches on defense, but we do need good players everywhere. So I'm not going to pass on good players just because we have a need at a particular position. I think there's a couple different places we can add talent and still be okay. So you'll see me do that when I go through this draft. Obviously, we have 9 draft picks. I'm not going through all of them. I'm doing the first 5 rounds. First 5 rounds on this one. And so that's just pretty much it on the assumptions. But before we get into that, my name is Aaron Duncan with the Necessary Bluntness Sports Talk. Recap analysis of the Panthers and the NFL draft is what I do on this channel. If you want more in-depth draft profile player breakdowns, because YouTube does not allow a lot of film breakdowns for particular college players without getting copyrighted, you need to check out my Patreon. That's where I'll do full profiles and write-ups with videos and stuff as well there. So make sure you join that up. Information is down in the description. Without further ado, let's get into the mock. So my first pick and pick number 1, round 1, number 8, the Carolina Panthers select Will Johnson, cornerback out of Michigan. This guy is the second best cornerback in this class if you consider Travis Hunter a cornerback. He's big, long, instinctual, great ball skills. He had 2 interceptions returned for a touchdown here in his final year at Michigan. He can play man coverage. He can play off coverage. He can turn the run, has nice hips, gets in and out of his breaks. Obviously, he's better suited probably playing off coverage, which is why I like him. We know how Ejiro Evero gets down. As of week 2, the Panthers were giving the second most cushion at corner, so you have to be able to play off coverage to be able to play in this Ejiro Evero system. Like I said, he's 6'1", so he has the size as well. This will allow, if we keep Mike Jackson, it will allow J.C. Horn maybe to go inside and play some nickel, since we need nickel help very, very bad. But I think Will Johnson is one of the better players. Universally looked at as one of the blue chip guys in there. For him to fall to 8 would be amazing. Obviously, there's question marks. He ended his season early because of a foot injury to prepare for the draft. There's questions about his long speed. Sounds a little bit like J.C. Horn, a 6'1" corner who had questions about his long speed. J.C. Horn ended up running in the 4.4s at his pro day, solidified him as a top 10 pick. I love Will Johnson here to make a legit tandem of J.C. Horn and Will Johnson for years to come. Will Johnson is my pick number 1. In round 2 at pick number 57, I stayed put. I did not make any trades. I forgot to mention that as an assumption. I didn't make any trades just because it's a lot of still uncertainty about a lot of these prospects. So I didn't make any trade just yet. We'll get to that a little bit more in my later mock drafts. But in this one, I went with Alfred Collins, defensive lineman from the University of Texas. Now, he's an experienced guy who has played over 1,800 snaps in college in his career. At 6'5", 320 pounds, he looks the part. One of those guys that gets off the bus and you already know what time it is, man. He's huge. And seeing that 6'5", 320 reminded me a lot of somebody else that we drafted in the first round. Yeah, that guy, Derek Brown. Not saying that he's that caliber of player, but that's the type of size that we're looking at when we want to get bigger up front and not get pushed around. We know what our problems were up front with this 3-4 defense with Ejiro Evero in terms of facing the run, not being able to get a good push, getting pushed around by the opposition. That's not going to happen when you put Alfred Collins out there. This guy is strong as an ox and doesn't get moved off his spot easily. He takes on double teams very, very well, plays with a high level of intensity, an A+ run defender who will be able to help this team from day one against the run. His pass rushing ability is a work in progress. It's funny because a lot of the stuff that he does well against the run, he does not use those tools and things to translate over to the pass rush. So if I could think, if he could put all stuff together, he could be a factor. But the thing is, with his size, he has a very, very good knack of knocking passes down the line of scrimmage. Even though he's not a great pass rusher, he has 6 deflections this year in his final year at Texas. So he's been able to affect the pass game as well. I love this guy's size and I love his upside, but like I said, from day one, he's going to come in, can play head up on the center. He can play on the tackle if he wanted to, line up and move up and down the line of scrimmage. He's going to be strong at the point of attack and not get moved off his spot. I love Alfred Collins in that second round because he runs the technique that Ejiro Evero loves, that stack and shed, where you use heavy hands to strike the offensive lineman, get locked out because he has the length, keep the peek around the lineman to see where the ball is going, and when the ball gets there, shed. We saw Derrick Brown does this to a T, so does Alfred Collins. So I love this matchup, putting him on the front to help this run defense. Round number 3, I went with safety Nick Emenwari out of the University of South Carolina. The only returning safety on the Carolina Panthers roster currently is Damani Richardson, undrafted free agent, who played pretty well in my opinion, especially for the type of guy that he was, being played at safety, being played at big nickel. But this is a good chance for the Panthers to reinvent their whole safety room. We know the Ejiro guys that were brought in, like Jordan Fuller and Nick Scott, they weren't it, and they will be gladly walking to the streets. Xavier Woods is a free agent. They may or may not bring him back. He has solid numbers, but it may be time for a fresh start to reimagine this safety room. So Nick Emenwari is one of those guys. 6'3", 225, has a 42-inch vert, and has been clocked at 23 miles per hour according to coaches. This guy was able to get his hands on a lot of passes this year, 4 picks, returned a couple for a touchdown. This guy is a supreme athlete. Finished with 61 tackles, like I said, 4 total picks. He's shown the ability to be versatile on alignment, up top, in the box, out in space at the nickel. He's a little bit raw, so he's going to be a work in progress. So he need to work on his fundamentals more than everything, and that's in terms of coverage and just taking proper angles when tackling. But he has all the physical tools. You saw what I listed athletically. He's pretty much like a Jeremy Chin clone, who I think has a little bit more athletic upside in terms of being able to cover. But he'll be an asset to be able to play close to the line of scrimmage with those that size and speed and ability to hit that he has. So I like Nick Emenwari here in the 3rd round. Round 4, I went with Jalen Noel, wide receiver out of the University of Iowa State. He's a slot receiver who had a very productive final year at Iowa. I think he projects as a slot in the league. I think he measured in about 5'10" or so here at the Senior Bowl. So just a very small guy, but his route running, he's able to run the full route tree. He's versatile enough to line up outside if you need him to, but like I said, I think he projects inside just because of that size he has, and I don't know if he has the speed to overcompensate for that per se, but this is a guy that can be the heir apparent to Adam Thielen just because of that dependable route running that he has. The one thing that isn't dependable at times is his hands. Sometimes he has had some shown flashes, but flashes of drops, but this guy, he's able to get deep. He's able to work between the chains. At worst, I think the floor for this guy is a dependable chain mover just because of his route running and some of the craftiness that he shows. And of course, like I said, he can get behind the defense if they are sleeping on him. But I really like Jalen Noel in this value spot on day 3, getting him in round 4. For the next pick in the 4th round for the Carolina Panthers, I went with Chase Lunt, tackle out of the University of Connecticut. Now this guy is a mountain man. This guy is 6'8", 305 pounds. He plays mainly on the right side and is a phenomenal athlete that moves very well laterally, has very good twitch for a guy that's that tall. You don't really see guys that big being able to move. Sometimes these guys can kind of labor when they're moving around, but this guy is actually a pretty good athlete in terms of that. Like all the experts project him to fit into the wide zone scheme, and that's a lot of the kind of the concepts that we run to because of that athleticism he has. So he's able to move, able to lean on some guys and get hands on them with length and push them around. So I really like him to fit into this run scheme as well. He does need to work on adding some mass and some strength. At 6'8", to only be 305, you are very light, and that shows up on film because although he has good technique in terms of setting an anchor and not getting pushed back, he's just sometimes just not strong enough to be able to do it. So we're not going to ask him to start right away because we have Taylor Moton. He can marinate as a rotational guy, add some weight, give him another 15 to 20 pounds and some time to work on his game. Obviously backing up a good vet like Taylor Moton. Obviously if injuries happen, we may need to count on him, but this guy can be somebody that can be the replacement for Taylor Moton as he's crossing over 30 years old. He's not going to be here for forever. So I think having a guy like Chase Lunt, who's huge, who I want to build a big fortress around Bryce Young. That way we can keep him clean as possible, and having a guy that's 6'8", 305 that has a frame to add some weight is a good way to go. I like Chase Lunt in the 4th round. With the first pick of the 5th round for the Carolina Panthers, I went with Braden Swinson, edge rusher from the Louisiana State University. Swenson had a pretty productive final season at LSU with 9 sacks and 43 hurries. Had a very upper, I think, with 87 percentile pass rush win rate according to Pro Football Focus. He's 6'4", 250 pounds. He has long arms on tape. He has a phenomenal get off, and he puts immediate pressure on these offensive tackles when he comes out of that stance and fires off, and he uses that to set up other things. Even though he's only 250, he shows the power for being able to convert that speed into power, putting his hands into offensive lineman's chest and bull rushing them back to the quarterback just for him to release and get some sacks. I love his ability to use his hands to free himself, and the flexibility to bend around the corner for a guy like that. This guy, he's not great against the run. I'm not gonna lie, but this is the 5th round we're talking about. If he was a perfect player, he would not be going in the 5th. This guy doesn't really have a ton of desire to play the run, not as much technique when pulls. When we run at him with pulling players, he'll turn his back, drop his shoulder just to kind of take on the contact. He won't go head up into it and eat the contact and go off of that. So that'll be a work in progress. But at worst, this guy can be a pass rush specialist, and the Panthers need this in the worst way. With this type of get off and speed, I think he can develop into a very intense type of player. It's not like he doesn't play hard. He plays very hard. He kind of gets into some individual battles out there, which can be good, but you want to see him not get lost in the sauce. But regardless, I think Braden Swenson has the intensity, the get off, the tools that you want in a third down pressure player that I think would be very good for the Panthers in a rotational standpoint. But like I said, still a work in progress. Maybe we can get some better out of him because he has the length and stuff like that. He has the want to, he has the intensity to potentially get better against the run. Just needs to be coached and fine-tuned. So I love actually Braden Swenson, one of my favorite value picks in this draft for the Panthers. The next 5th round pick is going to be Terrence Ferguson, tight end from the University of Oregon. Now this guy is about 6'5", 245, 33-inch arms, has a good frame. He's going to be another move tight end. He's not going to be a huge blocker in terms of that, but he played in that Oregon offense that spreads out the field. This guy is used to coming up with big catches for Dylan Gabriel across the field. This guy, he showed phenomenal hands at times in the short playoff stint that they had, but in the postseason overall as well in terms of just their conference championships and stuff. I was very impressed with him, but I love the size. I love the athleticism, the ability to stretch the field he has. I think he has that circus catch ability in his arsenal. I think Terrence Ferguson as a 5th rounder late is going to add another element to this tight end room as we try to rethink things, as guys like Ian Thomas and Tommy Tremble are free agents. We can bring in some different body types. He's a little bit taller than, of course, Jatavian Sanders, and I think he has a little bit more of a different skill set in terms of being able to stretch the field as well, with a little bit more explosive ability, in my opinion. But I do like Terrence Ferguson. And the last pick of this mock draft and the last pick of the 5th round for the Panthers is Aeneas Peebles, defensive tackle from Virginia Tech. Now, Aeneas Peebles, he is undersized. He's like 6'1", 300-something pounds, maybe even less than that. But this guy's tape is crazy. And this guy's not going to be super long in terms of what fits the mold for Ejiro Evero. But at the same time, this guy's pass rush ability is why I took a chance on him in the 5th. We need that. When I talked about Alfred Collins being a run defender, maybe a 2-down guy, Peebles can come in and be there on 3rd down to get after it. This guy's quick, he's agile, he has a great nasty spin move on the inside, just gets after the passer, has phenomenal tape, continues to flash there. I'm looking forward to seeing him at the Senior Bowl, but for me to get him in the 5th as a pass rusher from the interior, which seems like we haven't had here in a while for the Panthers, I really like the addition of Peebles, and I'll be curious to see how he does in Mobile. But this guy continues to impress on tape with his pass rush ability. I like him in the 5th round as a different rotational piece. But there it is, my first edition of the mock draft. PFF didn't really love your boy's draft. You can see by the grade here. But I want to get you guys' thoughts down below, because your boy went heavy defense like I like to do. I went heavy defense, but I also got some O-line, a receiver, and of course a tight end. I addressed some things, but I tried to go best player available based off of guys that would make it make sense for the system. But I want to get you guys' thoughts down below in the comments, how you thought about my first one. Give me a grade. And I know y'all are strict. Y'all are serious about these mock drafts and y'all are strict. So give me y'all grade down below. What you give me, an A, B, C, D, E, F, Z. Let me know what I got. Without further ado, please hit that subscribe button down below as we continue to grow on my quest to 20,000 subscribers. I really appreciate you guys watching. I'll see you next time. Peace.